Welcome back to the ProSource podcast, everybody. I'm Molly Thompson. I am sitting here today with Evan Pittman and Bonnie Schmitz, and they are here to talk about Decora and B.E.E., which is for Schrock Boutique, Diamond Edge, and Kemper Emerge. These cabinetry programs are designed to bring elevated design, on-trend finishes, and premium quality craftsmanship to a broader range of projects. Evan and Bonnie, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's wonderful to be here, Molly. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Yeah. So they are both from MasterBrand. We've talked about this a little bit the last time Evan was on. We talked about how MasterBrand oversees a huge portfolio of brands. So this is kind of a small section of that portfolio that we're getting into today. Before we dive into these premium brands, can you just briefly just introduce yourself to the audience and what you do day to day at MasterBrand?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll kick us off here. So again, like Molly said, my name is Evan Pittman. I am the product and brand leader for the Schrock Diamond Kemper product portfolio, as well as Decora. And I've been at MasterBrand now for going on 15 years. And a part of my day-to-day is really to examine, what are the current trends? What are the new products that people are hoping to incorporate within these product lines? We're constantly examining how do we make these product lines easier to use, easier to sell, and ensuring that we've got the right products in the offering. We're constantly thinking, what's on the product roadmap from next year to 4 years down the road. So it's really an exciting position to be in because we get to really interact with a lot of our customers, but also really understand the inner workings of how the organization operates.
Bonnie, how about you?
Yeah, I'm Bonnie Schmitz, as was stated. I've been in the kitchen and bath industry for 13 years, going on 13 years. I've had some variety of roles, but now I work as the product and pricing analyst for Schrock Diamond, Kemper, and Decora. So I focus more on executing our product vision and focusing really on voice of the customer, market trends, and analytics to back up all of our brand value propositions.
You guys both have a lot of experience behind you, which is great to hear. For anyone listening that might be newer to premium cabinetry, whether they're a trade pro or a homeowner, how should they think about Decora and B.E.E. within today's cabinetry landscape, and what makes them stand out from traditional cabinet offerings?
Yeah, that's a great question, Molly, and it's one that honestly we've been asking ourselves over the past year or so. We've been doing a tremendous amount of work to overhaul these portfolios, to overhaul their value propositions, to make them, again, easier to use and make them a little more approachable from the standpoint of bringing down the price, adding a lot more value. When you think about using these premium offerings, what's great about this is last year we were talking about the big transformation going on with Schrock Diamond, Kemper, and Midcon. This is really a continuation of that. And so with Boutique and Edge and Emerge, that gives you that next level designability, customization, premium features. What's great about it, though, is that it's really a continuation of that. It has the same styles, finishes, but just allows you to do a little bit more from a customization standpoint. It offers really those next level premium finishes, really those product species, those wood species that you can't typically get. And so that makes it really nice and makes it much easier to get into, especially if you're new into the premium category. Where Decora, on the other hand, Decora is a brand that's been around for a really long time. It has a long history of craftsmanship and quality. And we've been doing a lot to really kind of bring down the price point, add a lot more value to it, to make it much easier to use. And so it really operates as a standalone brand. And again, I think that there's a lot of elements to it, which we'll get into later, that make it much easier to jump into, especially if you're new to the category.
For sure. Yeah, that word premium can feel sometimes overwhelming to homeowners specifically. Maybe exciting for trade pros, but homeowners might be just looking at the price tag of that word. How do both of these brands, like specifically, how do they make premium just feel more approachable?
There are a few different ways to answer that question, I think, between the two different brands. So I would And I would answer them differently. So Decora is a bit more approachable with things like the programs that we offer within it. So we have our standard offering, and then we have these add-on offerings of our For Everyday, our Stanisi Wood Hood program, aluminum doors, all these extras that you can incorporate into your designs. Then for our Boutique Edge and Emerge lines, where it's really about the walk up from our semi-custom lines. So if you go from Schrock Entra to Trademark to Boutique, you're seeing these consistencies and commonalities as you move up the spectrum. So you're able to look at a value semi-custom line, understand that offering, build that knowledge up as you move up that continuum to make that a bit more of an approachable premium line, expanding on what is already offered.
Kind of piggybacking off of that, what are some more of those like curated options you were just talking about? You talked about like the aluminum door. Can you expand a little bit more on some of those options? And then also maybe like the finishes and maybe even some of the design features that can help deliver that elevated look that they provide?
Sure. So there's quite a lot. So when you move up, you'll see kind of doors consistently moving up that spectrum, but then you expand that as you move into the Boutique Edge Emerge and Decora, where we have inset doors as a modification rather than having to select entirely from a different catalog or something like that. It's a modification to get an inset cabinet. That program, as well as, like I said, our Stanisi Wood Hoods, that's offered in Decora right now. So our Stanisi Wood Hood program is something that we're actually going to be expanding upon this fall in Decora. We're altering that program, we're relaunching. And for Boutique Edge and Emerge, we're introducing that program. So there's going to be a really specialized premium hood program within both brand sets to give a much more broad offering of what you can do with wood hoods. And we also have within the semi-custom offering, we have aluminum doors. I think people will be familiar with those, but we have extended offerings within Boutique Edge and Emerge so it's that type of step up that we're talking about. So you have this kind of extra curated offering within the semi-custom lines and Trademark, and then you move up and you have this expanded finishes and expanded sizes and different things that you can do within that.
We also have something that really exciting happening with the BEE series. So later this fall, we plan to expand the availability of that program nationwide. So today it's only available really in the eastern half of the United States. And later this year, we're going to be expanding it to all ProSource locations. And we're very excited about that because, again, it presents that next level of designability. So yeah, looking forward to making some of these big enhancements.
It's also exciting that I feel like your team, you guys look at the trends that's happening, and that's probably what really informs some of these decisions on just expanding the portfolio of not just Decora and B.E.E, but the huge MasterBrand portfolio. What other design trends are you starting to see in 2026 that you think are going to continue influencing just how you guys expand those offerings?
Yeah, this is part of, I think, what really keeps our jobs interesting and fun. Because again, we're not just looking out what's happening this year. We're thinking about, 3 and 4 years down the road. However, one of the big things we're starting to see now, which is really a fundamental shift, is we're starting to see consumers really prefer stain product over paint, which, over the past 10 years, really, most people have preferred paint. And so this really represents a shift. And so not only are they moving into stain, but they're starting to prefer some of the lighter stains. And we've really seen that. But even beyond that, we're even anticipating a move to mid-tone stains in a year to 2 years down the road. So some exciting shifts that are happening. But that doesn't mean that people don't prefer paint. What we are starting to see with paint is really a move away from white and gray, which is what we've normally gotten pretty accustomed to seeing, over, throughout COVID and that time period. And getting a little more into demonstrating their own personalities, bolder choices with color. You're starting to see, off-whites, beiges, things of that nature. But, certainly greens are a big part of the portfolio right now. So you're seeing a lot more personality come out with kitchen design. And that's what's, I think, become really exciting for us.
I would like to add to that too. So it's that all that stain appreciation and kind of shift towards stain we're seeing come from this celebration of natural materials and really celebrating craftsmanship and the way you can see within the character of the wood. And so you might even see 3 or 4 finishes within one design, where we typically maybe see a paint and a different paint, like back in the 2010s when we were seeing just all light gray and white together. Now we're seeing an island in a walnut and a painted wood hood in a fun pop of color to match a range. And really like varying the palette of the kitchen, but also not just in color, but in texture. So that is, I think, the main driver of that shift.
Absolutely. And I know Decora's color by design and the custom color capabilities that Decora offers really fits into this trend. How are you seeing designers use those programs to just continue creating unique spaces?
The color by number program with that we offer that allows for any Sherwin-Williams or Benjamin Moore color. We've seen a huge takeoff in that. It's been really successful, and we're seeing a huge variety of selection within that program itself. Decora also has our bespoke custom hues program, which is you match anything you want. And we see that being used really by these high-end premium design feel designers who are focused on this really elevated, hyper elevated look and feel, and highlighting key areas of the kitchen as well. So like I said, islands, wood hoods, making a statement wall, things like that. But also just bringing in little bits of character here and there and showing refinement in the color selection.
Going back to the stain trend, Ambrose is a great example of a stain that can look very different depending on the wood species with it. Do you have any suggestions or, I guess, tips for trade pros, homeowners? What should they understand about how species, stain, and finish work together?
I think that this is a very interesting situation, because I really do think you need to do your homework here as you dive into what you want your kitchen to be, what you want your kitchen to look like, not only now, but even a couple of years from now. The reason I say that is because, when you're looking at traditional wood species like maple is, oftentimes, more closed grain texture. It takes stain and color differently than, say, a cherry does. I think with maple, you're going to see more truer colors come through. However, you also need to consider that sometimes it doesn't take stain as evenly as maybe some other wood species, whereas you could get some blotchiness come through. But if, again, you're looking at other species like cherry, for example, it tends to have redder tones underneath it. And so it's going to bring these colors, it's going to change and transform these colors. Not to mention, the reason I bring up you need to know what you want your color to look like a couple years from now is that cherry naturally ages over time and certainly can speed that up if any of your cabinetry sits in direct sunlight. And so these are things you really need to anticipate as you're building out your kitchen design.
Anyone listening, hopefully they are aware of some of those factors, because I imagine that happens all the time. Someone gets a cherry cabinet and then they're like, what is happening to my cabinet? Well, you have this huge window out, like that's shining all this light on it. Is there any other ways, any customizations that these brands offer that we haven't talked about? I know we talked about the color a lot, but what other ways do these brands give customization opportunity?
Customization so inherently cabinetry is like an aggregate. It's a buildup of things. It's not just here you click a button and buy your kitchen. It's not a singular layout. So everything is customizable within reason within cabinetry. And Decora and Boutique, Edge and Emerge offer even more than that. So I would say the biggest way customization comes into place is not only fitting your space, so dimensional modifications, things like that to just make things work, but also functionality. The key, I think, to a good kitchen design is having a really strong functional layout that you customize to the need of that homeowner. So understanding what that's going to be used for, what storage accessories will be handy down the line, having adaptable storage. So rollout trays and drawers are always really helpful. Can you swap in and out storage solutions over time. People's storage needs change over time. So how can you make those spaces adaptable? How can you make that function really nicely? You can use the modifications within Decora and Boutique Edge Emerge, but you can also use just our standalone SKUs to make that customization within the entire kitchen set.
These seem like really good questions to ask early on in the process of working with the designer. Just the functionality of the cabinet, like what are you going to use this cabinet for? Is there any other cabinet upgrades or design details that you think more people should consider in those early steps of remodeling a kitchen or a bathroom?
Really to kind of build on what Bonnie just mentioned, one thing you always should consider is organization. I think organization and function of your cabinetry is so important that oftentimes comes up, after the fact, after you've got your kitchen inside or installed. A lot of people, I think, regret to some extent that they didn't spend a little bit more on that organizational feature, that particular function. Oftentimes when you've just got your brand new kitchen installed and you want to show it off, there's always a couple focal points within your kitchen or in your bathroom, right? That draw a lot of attention from your neighbors, right? A pull down spice rack or something that you can really demonstrate that I think adds real function and value to your home. And so those are things that I would consider. But in addition, there are some things that I think you can achieve. You can get obviously within these series, premium finishes like brush finishes, and not to mention the standard and construction of these units is all plywood, and so you naturally have just a upgraded feel and a higher quality as it lends itself to these premium series.
To piggyback on that, I would agree completely. And I think that the construction is a really good element to bring up, where the priorities of every homeowner are going to be different. So they might be looking for a specific aesthetic that they can definitely get in Decora, right? They can get a mid-century modern, they can get a mod, they can get like a very hyper traditional. But did they have a flood in the past? Did they have their cabinets damaged? Like, is that their priority? Is there something that, or do they just really want a functional space that works for them? And because they're really into cooking, it matters what they're going to use that space for really a lot, and what their priority is down the line.
I know earlier in this episode, we talked about some of the exciting announcements a little bit that's happening over within these brands. Are there any other exciting news, any new products, stains that we haven't touched base on that you would like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. Always. That's always a fun thing to work with you. We just recently introduced a new premium wood species, Courtesan white oak. That it's certainly very popular right now. We just brought that out earlier this spring. We're expanding our color palette, which is really exciting, both from a stain and a paint standpoint. Later this fall, like Bonnie had mentioned, we're expanding our wood hood program, our Stanisi wood hood program, to make it much easier to use, much more on trend, which is exciting. We've got some new styles on the way. So there's really a lot here that I think people, once they start to open the pages of the book, will really understand that, hey, these lines drive a lot of value. And I think that they're now well placed in the market from a pricing standpoint to make them much easier to get into.
Just personally, are there any of your favorite styles that you would like to share with our homeowners, trade pros that are listening, whether they're for Decora or those BEE lines? What are your favorite styles out right now?
I'll take a first crack at that. And I'm going to talk more in terms of a category itself. I really like what inset brings to your home. I think it just is that element that it is really neat when you see it, and really I think defines what we would call premium, so to speak. And so that's maybe how I would answer that question.
I would say I'm partial to very trendy things, so I'm really liking the Halden door in Decora. So that's our skinny shaker. It has different names in boutique,
Yes.
but that skinny shaker in white oak looks so good on a stain. I love that door, and I think it looks fantastic. So that's one of my favorites right now.
I can agree with you too. I do like the skinny shaker look that we've been seeing. It just makes the whole space feel a little bit more elegant and like clean. And I'm also a big fan of the fact that stains are coming back, natural wood looks are back, and I'm always here for color, as I have been. But I just think, yeah, people are not wanting their homes to look like a hospital. They want to add some fun color, kind of like what we saw, I think, in the early 2000s growing up. At least for me, I feel like my home was very colorful. And now I move into an apartment, and it's like, it's an apartment. So, of course, it's not going to be super fun looking. They want people to be able to customize it, I guess, with their little knickknacks. But even just through us marketing, like when we post on TikTok, people want to see the colorful homes and the colorful rooms and kitchens. So I don't think it's any surprise that all of this is back and you guys are tailoring to those trends perfectly with your product offerings. Any final thoughts on how these brands are helping designers, homeowners bridge the gap between standard and luxury cabinetry while also staying on budget and, of course, on trend?
That it's kind of what I was saying earlier, and the question I answered two ways. Where Decora is really focused on us being a standalone brand and having everything that you would possibly need within that brand through set SKUs and modifications. You can really get to most things without having to offer a custom quote type solution. So you can get something out of the box for the pros that they can just install and move forward, and they'll have a perfect solution. In Boutique Edge and Merge, really, it's the focus of how does this relate to its sister brands. So the semi-custom lines and how those tie in and how that makes sense together. So we can use these things together to build out a full home. Maybe you have a boutique kitchen, you have trademark bathrooms and an entre laundry. So working with that entire series, the enterprise, really is our focus with the Boutique Edge and Emerge.
Yeah,
Perfect.
and to add on to that, Bonnie, what I would say is that we also really want to make sure that you're successful when you're designing with these product lines. We offer a world-class customer service team that they're there for you in case you have questions. We've got Decor by Design, which is a great service in case you have questions. You're midway through a design, you need some help in terms of you're looking for some creative ideas or how to finish it off. So we really want to ensure that you are successful. And we believe if you're taking your first step into premium, these are the right product lines to be able to do that with.
Absolutely. And of course, I always recommend to people going into your local ProSource, looking at the samples at your local ProSource to really get a feel and see it in person. Of course, we have options on our website, ProSourceWholesale.com. We have brand pages. You can skim through the different products for these brands, but where else can they find more information on these premium cabinet options?
So for our pros and for designers, anyone with an account with us, we can go to MasterBrand Connect. And we'll also have some fall launch training dates coming up in October. So you can look forward to emails about that. And then for homeowners, check out our websites. So Schrock.com, Diamond.com, Kemper.com, and Decora.com. There's everything you really need to understand and know on our websites.
Awesome. Okay, thank you both so much for sharing your expertise about premium cabinetry with our audience today. We really appreciate it. And thank you all for listening.